Hello, my viewers. I am your host. 5 minutes or less review. Coming to you live with another episode of just basically reviewing the information I'm seeing on the internet. I'm kind of a little bit interested in. Sorry about that. Got a little bit interested in true crime shows, and I've started trying my best to actually piece things together. Now, I'm not going to sit down here and simply say, hey, I already have an understanding of the situation. But based on what I understand from the case, I'm going to try my best to give you guys an understanding of how my mind is working as I'm getting the information directly. Now, for this case, I have watched two videos in which they basically just presented the information as is, and I did some jotting down left and right on the situation, and then I'm going to listen to Mr. Doctor here, the Doctor Man here, speak on the issue. So I'm going to just keep quiet. You guys listen to what he has to say, and then hopefully YouTube doesn't hit me with some kind of non-fair use, whatever. I don't know, but we'll see. Let's get on with the show. Yes, yeah. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that I have volume on my YouTube, because sometimes you go around speaking, and you don't know that you don't even have any volume. You know, so I'm going to go over to my channel here and see whether I have volume. So just give me a second here. I'm going to see. Around speaking. All right, so I have a volume. So with that said, let us go ahead and get into this situation, shall we? All right, guys.
Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Annie Lay and Raymond John Clark III? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing by this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Annie Lay was born in San Jose, California on July 3, 1985. She was raised in Placerville. Annie was exceptionally intelligent and did well in school. She was the valedictorian of her graduating class in high school. She was voted the most likely to be the...
Guys, in a nutshell, she was a very smart lady who understood a lot of things in life. And remember, this was around 2007, so many people were smart during those times, because I grew up. In fact, I'd already graduated out of college at that time, and I'd moved on to other things. So, I believe that me and Annie Lane, to some degree, are close in age, although I believe that I'm older than her. So, let's move on. I'm basically, I will be older than her, because she didn't live that long. So yeah, we would almost be close in age, but like I said, she's around the kind of group of people that I would belong to. So yeah, it's quite unfortunate that she was taken out before her own time. So yeah, let's move on.
Einstein. Annie moved from California to New York to attend the University of Rochester. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2007. Her major was cell and developmental biology. She was accepted into the pharmacology PhD.
And guys, that is not an easy task to actually accomplish. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication to actually achieve something like that. I know a lot of people are actually doing some variation of it back in biology. Most people just encounter it maybe 1 or 2 semesters in your biology and you move on. But someone going ahead and majoring in subjects like this, especially when it comes to biology, then yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of brain power to actually maintain some of those information. But let's move on.
PhD program at the Yale School of Medicine in New Haven, Connecticut. She started the program in September 2007. Annie was scheduled to graduate in 2013. In 2008, Annie became engaged to a graduate student at Columbia University named Jonathan Wadowski. The couple planned to marry on September 13, 2009, in Syosset, New York, close to where Jonathan was from. One of Annie's responsibilities as a student was to conduct research on mice. Occasionally, she spent time in a 120,000 square foot research laboratory located at 10 Amistad Street.
So, one thing he's not saying here, guys, is that she had another place where she worked at, which was the Office of Medicine, and she would go to the veterinary building, which is in the Amistad building, to basically do her experimentation there. So that's what is going on. All right, move on.
A man named Raymond John Clark III was an animal technician who worked in that laboratory. Let's take a look at his background. Raymond was born in Wallingford, Connecticut on January 28, 1985. He grew up in Branford, which is about 13 miles east of New Haven. In high school, he was considered a good student and was active in sports. He played football and baseball. Raymond desperately wanted to work at Yale University in the laboratory at 10 Amistad Street. He knew 3 people who worked there: his girlfriend Jennifer, his sister, and his brother-in-law.
Okay, guys, listen to this. If you listen again, he said, 3 people that worked there. His girlfriend Jennifer and his brother-in-law also worked at that place. I want you to keep an understanding on this, because to some degree something else transpired and a lot of people are not looking at it. Let's move on. I want you guys to just keep this part in mind too, because I think something else happened here. And to some degree, if you watch the other videos of YouTube that I put underneath this video that I'm doing, if you guys watch it, you guys might begin to understand that something was a little bit amiss here. Let's move forward.
Raymond was so eager to get a job at that facility that he lied on his resume, claiming he had worked on a farm and was familiar with animals. Ironically, Yale didn't do their research. They hired Raymond despite the lie. He was eventually promoted to animal technician. His job was to take care of the animals. He would provide them food and water, report any unusual behavior, like if the animal appeared to be ill, and when a researcher determined that it was time for animals to conclude their earthly journey, it was Raymond's job to kill the animals using carbon dioxide.
Now, I want you guys to understand one thing here again. It was his job to kill the animals. A lot of people often think that just by killing animals is not a thing. You just go ahead and kill the animals and you move on. It affects your psychology. I'm going to repeat it again. Killing animals it's not a simple thing. It also affects your psychology. You understand what I'm saying? It affects your mind. So it's no different from your brain opening up when you first kill a chicken. Maybe as a little kid, if you were living in Africa or whatever, it opens up your mind. And it's up to you now to control that mind, because you may be living in Africa or somewhere where you have to kill animals in order to eat. You're going to have to control all of that, because you're going to move from a chicken to a goat and eventually a cow. And the thing about it is that you begin to realize just how, it is with other human beings. We're no different from all these animals too. And you quickly realize that, but you have to maintain yourself to make sure that you do not go overboard, because once your mind is open like this, it's no different from, let's just say, I think a lot of people who maybe like a nursing school or a nurses or whatever it is, or phlebotomist, they'll tell you that almost like every single time they see somebody's arms and they can see a vein, they feel like they want to poke the arm and get blood from there. So just be aware that the same thing happens if you're always killing animals, or you see a child always killing animals. That's a problem. Okay? Regardless of the situation, there's a psychological problem, and people like this often need people who are going to always give them some kind of therapy, because they are going through a lot killing these animals. It's not easy to say, oh, this animal is dead. I mean, it's one thing if you're trying to save the animal's life and the animal is always dying on you, then that's a problem, and you can start getting pissed off. But it's another thing when you're the one who is causing the death of these animals. Let's move on.
Raymond was considered strict about following the rules in the laboratory. On January 1, 2008, Raymond and his girlfriend Jennifer became engaged. They planned to marry near the end of 2011. In March 2009, Raymond moved into an apartment with Jennifer. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On September 8, 2009, Raymond Clark arrived for work at 10 Amistad Street at about 7 a.m. Annie Lay arrived at 10:09 a.m. 2 minutes later, she entered room G13, which was a laboratory in the basement. There she conducted research on mice. Sometime around or not long after 10:40 a.m., Raymond murdered Annie. He initially attacked her in room G13, then moved her body to another.
Now, again, you have to understand that Raymond actually left the building around 10 something also. Alright? And then came back with a different kind of scrub. So you left the building with a pink laced scrub around 10 o'clock. And then came back into the building after he had had his lunch with a blue laced scrub. Alright, this was for his lunch break. And this was before the fire alarm. So that means it didn't take long after she came in that he killed her. That's according to the situation, right? That means it didn't take long after she came in that he had an altercation with her and then left the building almost instantly. Moving forward.
Other room, G22, where he strangled her at about 12:50 p.m.
Again, the issue here is that there was a fight, and then eventually he then went ahead and strangled her. So there was a fight in which physical alteration were exchanged, and then she was eventually asphyxiated with the bead that she had around her neck. So that was what was probably used to strangle her. She had a metal bead on her neck. If you can look at the video back again, there's a metal bead on her neck that was probably used to strangle her, and then that bead was broken.
A fire alarm activated in the building. There was no fire, but of course people still had to evacuate. Raymond exited the building with everyone else and returned when the fire alarm situation was resolved. At this point, Raymond hid Annie's body behind a plumbing access panel in the men's locker room.
So the question becomes, why was the fire alarm activated? Probably to get people out of the area, or probably he on the fire alarm in order to sprinkle water in the room. Maybe there was no access to water, so they needed water in order to clean up whatever happened on the floor, whatever it is that was that poured on the floor, whatever fluid was on the floor. Probably was just to get rid of those things. So there we go. Let's move on.
He attempted to clean up the crime scene as well. Raymond left work at 3:48 p.m. When Annie did not return home from the laboratory, her roommate became concerned. At 10 p.m., the roommate called the police. The police started searching for Annie, but did not have any success. The next day at 7:30 p.m., the police announced that Annie was a missing person. They reviewed surveillance video that may have captured Annie. The police noticed that Annie entered the building on Amistad Street on September 8, but never exited, not even when the fire alarm activated at about 12:50 p.m.
All right. Now, there's something else that he has not said here, and I wanted you guys to also understand it. She left her own building, the Office of Medicine, to go to the veterinary building. But when she was going over there, she didn't carry any cell phone, she didn't carry her purse, no personal items. Every item of hers was left in the Office of Medicine. Now the question is, why did she not carry anything? I think we can actually look at the video again and let's see what was happening here.
September 8, 2009, Annie Lay
You can see,
arrived at...
if you look at her, what is she doing? She's holding something in her hands. Does her clothes look like as if it has any room for a cell phone? No, it does not. Does her shirt look like it has any room for a cell phone? No. But what is she carrying with her hands? I don't know. Perhaps an animal that she was investigating.
10:09 a.m. 2 minutes.
All right, let's go back.
The day Annie was supposed to be about Annie's disappearance, but had nothing to do with it. He said that on September 8, he arrived to work at about 7 a.m. He took a break at about 10 a.m. He saw Annie around 10:30 a.m. and then saw her leave at 12:30 p.m. He did not see her after returning to the building after the fire alarm and left work a few hours later. Again, the police didn't think he was suspicious, but they wondered why they didn't see Annie leaving at 12:30 p.m.
And again, there's something that he hasn't said, is that when they asked him all these questions, they noticed that he had bruising, scratches on his face and on his body. But when he questioned about what was on his face and his body, he said it was cat related, that he had an encounter with a cat that caused him those bruising and scratches. Moving forward.
At all, for that matter. As the police continued their search of the building, investigators noticed the smell of human decomposition. A police dog was brought in. On September 13, the day Annie was supposed to be married, her body was found behind the plumbing access panel. She had injuries to her face, and her underwear was pulled down. The police found a great deal of evidence connecting Raymond to the crime, including his DNA and Annie's DNA on a green pen that was near her body. Raymond was arrested on September 17, 2009, and charged with murder. He initially pleaded not guilty, but in March of 2011, Raymond pleaded guilty to murder. He also entered an Alford plea on the charge of attempted sexual assault. An Alford plea is when a defendant maintains their innocence, but they admit that the government has enough evidence to get a conviction. On June 3, 2011, Raymond was sentenced to 44 years in prison. He is scheduled for release on September 16, 2053, when he will be 68 years old. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Annie Lay had expressed some concerns about getting married. She was worried that she was too young. When she went missing, some people thought that she had simply developed cold feet about the wedding that was coming up in 5 days. Overall, however, Annie was quite excited about her upcoming marriage. It's natural and appropriate for people to be concerned about getting married. Annie had a bright future ahead of her. Her husband was also a doctoral student. He was working toward a degree in mathematics. Annie wanted to be a biomedical researcher and discover cures for various types of cancer. There was every indication that she was going to make a significant contribution, which would have made the world a better place. All of her dreams and all the good she could have done were eliminated by one person, which brings me to item number 2. When Raymond Clark was young, he was described as friendly, personable, respectful, aloof, and quiet. He had a good sense of humor and plenty of friends. Raymond was highly competitive in athletics, but initially did not have any difficulty managing his temper. He did not engage in behavior that would attract the attention of law enforcement, and he had no criminal history. Over time, Raymond's behavior started to change, especially in the context of romantic relationships. Raymond had a girlfriend before he was with Jennifer. This girlfriend suggested that Raymond was controlling and demanding. He would tell her what friends she could hang out with and what friends she had to avoid. Raymond controlled when she could speak and what volume she was to use. Eventually, he would complain because she was breathing too loudly. His girlfriend knew that the relationship was not healthy. She broke up with him. Raymond lost his temper and, allegedly, became physically violent. The girlfriend filed a complaint with the police. This was in 2003. She was not interested in pressing charges, but the police spoke to Raymond. He was told that if he had any contact with her, they would be filing charges against him. Raymond did not attempt to contact her. Both he and his ex-girlfriend moved on and dated other people. Raymond eventually became romantically involved with Jennifer. Moving to item number 3, the idea that Raymond was controlling and demanding is reinforced when looking at his performance at his job in the laboratory at Yale. People there said he was overly strict about the rules. If somebody forgot to clean a cage containing mice or did not put on a lab coat, they would receive a nasty comment or message from Raymond. He seemed to enjoy criticizing the researchers and the students in the laboratory, as if he wanted to prove that they weren't really that smart. They didn't deserve.
Many of the times, if you've actually worked in the laboratory, or if you worked in all these places, a lot of people that come in there are very sloppy. I won't lie to you about that. I've seen this thing happen way too many times. It gets on almost everybody's nerves, especially the ladies. Very, very sloppy stuff. They don't know how to keep things away. They don't know how to push stuff to the side. They just leave everything, outside there because they know there's a help to come and clean it up. Rather than helping the helper, they will just leave things anyhow. Like, guys will put their stuff away and make sure things are okay, so at least you reduce the work for the person, whoever is coming to clean the lab. But the ladies, man, back then, back when I was in school during the 2001, 2002, like, people are very, 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 very sloppy when it comes to items in the lab. So you gotta be on them, because if you're not on them, these ladies will walk all over you and they will make your life a living hell. So many other times you got to give them, a statement. Guys, you just talk to them once, say, yo, bro, can you guys help me just clean up this place, make sure everything is tidy before you guys leave, and so on and so forth. You see the guys, they just comply. They may, as much as maybe they can take you on or they can deck you, but they'll respect themselves, because they're not a guy. They just, they understand, hey, this is your situation. I understand. I don't want to make life difficult for you. I'll do that. But the ladies, no, they don't listen. They some of them are very disrespectful. They don't know how to follow commands. They just don't. So many times, for you to make them comply, you've got to be a little bit aggressive, because if you are this cool, nicey, tidy kind of person, these ladies will walk all over you. And truth be told, you're seeing that even right now, and it's even worse right now. It's even like, at this point, you don't even bother, man. Just walk away, because you can't tell them to do anything. But back then, at least if you stand tall, you're a little bit aggressive, they will comply. Yeah, but nowadays they don't comply. They look at you up and down and say, many times it's better not to just say anything and just walk away. So yeah, moving forward.
Deserve to be in a position above him. In this laboratory, highly trained researchers worked alongside relatively unskilled workers. People who worked there said it caused a lot of tension. It was clear who was making the money and who wasn't.
What I think this doctor is doing is that he's trying to bring in some kind of woman kind of way of looking at things, whereby you simply say, hey, this person is making more money than me, and as a result of that, I'm feeling inferior to that person. I don't think that's what was going on, and I beg to differ that that's what the situation that's happening there. Just a simple case of, help me, make sure that, the whole place is clean. Because a lot of people, they're too sloppy, they leave things around, like I said earlier on. And many of the times you have to be on them for it. Because they'll look at you like, oh, you're beneath me or something like that. And, they might just simply say, hey, because you work here, I'm just going to make more work for you. They can do that. But you have to stand tall in a situation like this and make them understand that, yo, help me so that I can help you guys make sure that the lab is always clean.
Perhaps this was particularly frustrating.
And again, you have to remember one thing, is that he's also killing animals. His mind is also warping at this point too. And he's not going through therapy. Let's move forward.
To Raymond. He was working alongside all these people who were successful or would be successful, while he was trapped in a low-level and low-paying job.
That is not the reason to kill anybody. No reason whatsoever. I assure you, no reason.
In addition, he was the one cleaning up all the messes caused by the people he envied. Item number 4. Raymond Clark never revealed his motive for the murder. He admitted to the murder and expressed remorse, but he did not explain why he did it. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Raymond Clark was relatively well adjusted in most dimensions, but had a marked deficit in the area of romance. He was controlling and perfectionistic. Raymond used simple and straightforward tactics to control romantic partners. He was not sophisticated or particularly manipulative. Rather, he just demanded what he wanted and lost his temper if he didn't get his way. At his job, Raymond frequently interacted with Annie. He developed a strong romantic attraction to her. From his point of view, she was ideal. Within the laboratory, she was part of the upper class, not as high as a professor, but she was on her way. Being with Annie would have increased Raymond's standing and minimized frustration about belonging to a lower class. On one occasion, Raymond criticized Annie for not handling laboratory mice according to his standards. Annie tried to defuse the situation by being apologetic. Raymond was trying to control Annie's behavior through his criticism. When she responded by apologizing, he took this as a sign that he was gaining control. He was establishing dominance. Raymond's romantic fantasy became more intense from that point on. At about 10:35 a.m. on the day of the murder, Raymond checked his email and found a message that Annie had sent to people in the laboratory. The email explained how she was getting married in a few days. My guess is that the email contained something about how she would be out of work for a while. Raymond perceived Annie's upcoming wedding as a rejection. He became enraged and confronted her in room G13. He demanded to have sex with her, but she resisted. Raymond beat her into unconsciousness. He broke her jaw and her collarbone. At this point, he knew that he was in trouble. The building was surrounded by cameras. There was no way he was going to hide this attack. He moved Annie to room G22 and strangled her.
All right. That's where I'm going to have to say that this doctor analysis, I'm going to have to check him on this one. There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, and you have to understand one thing. First of all, the only indication for SA, okay? Only indication for SA was that her clothes were a little bit disheveled. And the reason why I put the disheveled, well, the reason why I doubt it is because where she was found, I think, upside down at the back of the toilet through a compartment, an open compartment, where she was pushed in. Now, if you know that you're going to mangle somebody into a compartment like that, you're going to move their clothes around, you know. So with their clothes being moved around, it will indicate, hey, there's tearing, there's this, there's that, because you're pushing their body. You're moving their body. You're going to try to manipulate their clothes in order to get their body in there. So she was mangled, the way she was placed in there. And her clothes may have also been mangled. So the idea of an SA, I don't think it's there, but with what he pleaded for, I think I've forgotten what this guy called it, was that he's not pleading guilty to it, but he will accept that the county or the state have enough evidence to convict him for it. So I think that's where the angle they were going, but I don't think that was actually done. Now, the other part is, let's try to understand the altercation that may have happened. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to two things right here. The first one is that she had been strangled, right? In either G13 or G22. Okay? According to the investigation, she may have been strangled in G22. But question is, where was the bathroom? Where was the male bathroom in which she was fitted? Alright? That's my own thing. Where is the male bathroom? Because if I understood where the male bathroom is in line with the G13 and G22, I can be able to think about what was actually his process of thinking here. Because if I can see the building, I can understand what was the process. Is it that he couldn't hide her in any of the rooms? Because from what I read, he tried to hide her on top of the ceiling at one point. So keep that in mind. Now, The second part is that he had injuries on himself and she had injuries on herself. She had a broken jaw and a collarbone. Right? A broken jaw and a collarbone. She didn't have injuries to the back of the head, but she had a broken jaw and a collarbone, which indicates one thing, which was a punch, probably a very good punch that was laid on her face and broke her jaw. Now, my question is this. Many of the times when you see assault like this, when you see a guy who is maybe 5 foot or 6 foot hitting a woman who is about 5'1", usually it's a one job, one knockout kind of situation. So the question is, why does he have injuries on his own body? Why does he have injuries on his own body? That's my biggest question. Why? Did she assault him first? Like, guys, I'm not trying to create any situation here, because I know many of the times, I mean, this situation has already gone, and may God rest her own soul, but I'm just thinking through here with you guys, man. Did she try to assault him first? Did he say something to her that was off-putting to this situation that whereby he felt the need to harm her? What was the problem? We don't know what triggered him. You know? But we do know that he was also assaulted. Because he had marks, he had scratches, he had bruising also on his chest area and also on his face. There was some trauma. There was a lot of trauma. There was some trauma on his face and on his face and also around his arm area or something like that. Right? So there was scratches on his body. Now, the second thing again is this. With what he said, the third thing is, he said that she was getting married and he saw it and he asked her to come see him, or maybe he went into the room to go see her and situation happened. Now, we do understand one thing, that her own room is basically G13. So there's a high probability that he came into G13 and saw her there and started talking to her. So that is established. Right? So he went into her own room, to the own laboratory, the G13 laboratory, saw her, spoke to her, things happened, and somewhere along the line he was injured and she was injured. Right? Now the question becomes, why didn't he kill her in G13? Why did he have to drag her all the way to G22? Why? Why did he have to drag her there? Did he drag her around the bead and cause asphyxiation while he was dragging her, because it was a metal bead? So maybe he thought it won't tear. And again, she's 5'1", about 90 pounds, or less than that, I think. So maybe he thought maybe the idea was, oh, I'm just gonna drag her with the bead, and then pull her to G22. Because dragging her any other way wouldn't really make so much sense. But then again, he could carry her because she's a small thing. He could have just carried her, or drag her by one hand. And again, you have to ask yourself, why kill her in G22? That's the thing that is still, at the back of my head. Like, what's going on? Did she try to wake up when he smacked her across the face and maybe she became unconscious? And then he thought she was dead, and then maybe when he reached G22 trying to hide her, she woke up and then he decided to strangle her. Maybe that's what happened. But I don't know. I don't know how far that was. And I don't know how far from G22 is to the men's bathroom where he went and hid her behind the panel. Now, I want you guys to understand one thing again, is that there's some possible foreshadowing on maybe what was happening to her, because there was something that she published there in New Haven. And there, she mentioned something about there's a plague of thefts around the area, and also a lot of frightening conversations. But with some kind of street mats, you can be able to maneuver many of these problems and not end up becoming a victim. I look at it as maybe somehow indicating something that's happening in her life presently. You know, whereby maybe she almost became a victim of theft, and she's also dealing with physical verbal altercations, and then finding ways to actually navigate those problems when she wrote that this thing. But the thing, like I said, that still bothers me is this: she grew up almost around. I mean, she was alive in 2009, right? 2008, 2009. And during that period, you had all these cell phones that were a little bit small, like the Nokias, the Razors, and all those good old phones, the Blackberries, you know? So she basically knew she was carrying an item on her hands, as you guys can see, an animal, right? She didn't carry any of her supplies. She didn't carry her purse to wear around her this thing. She didn't carry her cell phone. Like, in those days, like, you couldn't go anywhere without your cell phone attached to you. Your cell phone was very important. Even on campus, you had to do so. And the reason why I said she had to, like most people who carry their cell phone with them, is because if you're going to leave your items, because she left her items in the Office of Medicine, right? She left her car keys, her personal items, everything in the Office of Medicine. And probably she left it with a friend, right? Telling the friend, you know what, look after my stuff, and you know, if you feel like you're going back to the laboratory, give me a call. I'll come back and pick up my stuff. There was a possibility that was the conversation she had, and by all means, she should have carried her cell phone with her just in case the person whom she left her items with is trying to leave the scene, and he wants her or she wants her to come pick up her stuff before she leaves the area. Like, it's been known to happen. Like, back then, you leave your stuff in the library, you leave your stuff maybe in the classroom, you tell somebody to look after it for you, and then, you know, the person wants to leave, and they're like, yo, where are you? You know, I'm about to leave the class, come pick up your stuff, or where do you want me to keep your stuff? You know, stuff like that. But then again, it's an office building. So there's a probability that she may have dropped her items inside her drawer and locked it, but then her keys are not with her. You left without your keys. You left without your keys. You left without your cell phone. You just went ahead and picked up whatever you were picking up and said going to the laboratory. Something is not right. What caused her to rush all the way to the laboratory? That's the question I wanted to know. And I think there was no communication between her and this guy. Like, how on God's green earth did she leave around 10 o'clock to go there, and then the guy also left the building around that same 10 o'clock too? I just don't get it. All right. But here's what I'm going to say. All right. I think to some degree that there was a some kind of romantic relationship between him and her. That's what I think. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. There was a relationship between him and her. She sent an email out that morning or a day before saying that, hey, listen, I'm getting married, this is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. There's also maybe a relationship going on in which she voiced her own opinion that, like, what, I mean, do you think people are too young to be getting married? All that whole jazz. She said those things because something else was going on the back of her mind. I've been around women a lot to know that when they start voicing stuff and asking you questions usually about themselves. It's usually about themselves. And when it comes to the ladies, man, I won't lie to you. Something else is going on behind the scene that you do not know. Now, she may have gone over there to drop off the supply that she had in her hand and met with him, and maybe he didn't like what she was saying, and then stuff happened. But then again, I want you guys to understand one thing, that his in-laws also work at the same building. His in-laws also work at the same building. So, the only thing I can actually say that may have triggered him is if the woman said, you know what, I might tell your in-laws about what is going on between us. I might tell your fiancé about what's going on between us. Or I'm going to tell your fiancé about your attitude towards me, or something like that. I don't know. Those are the only things that I can say may have triggered this guy to lose his mind and then whack her. That's the only thing. You know? That's the only thing. Or maybe he just lost his mind and you said, you know what, today I'm just going to end you. In my personal opinion, this case was not a good case. This guy, whoever did that to her, did her wrong. Whatever happened or whatever was the issue that led to her being touched could have easily been resolved another way. I just feel like as if it's just a crime of passion. My guy lost his mind, started smacking, and a situation happened, and then she goes down, and then boom. He realizes that, man, situation is just going to get out of hand. You know? Or, to some degree, I might say that maybe the in-laws were aware of it. The soon-to-be in-laws or fiancé or whatever it is may have heard about a relationship between two of them. I do not know. But why is it on the day in which she announced that she is getting married, will this nonsense happen to her? There's only one reason. Only one reason. And that was somebody didn't like what was happening. I wanted to find a way to quash that problem. That's what I think. And then going over there, trying to talk to him or him talking to her, something triggered him or her, and the situation got out of hand. You know, situation got out of hand. Again, she's small. Any small hit or any kind of like, oh, I'm going to, you know, might have caused any part of her body to be broken. So, anyway, I think I'm going to have to end it right there. The doctor has said what he had to say about the situation, but I do believe that to some degree, it was something that was said in the room that may have triggered the situation. It wasn't about him saying, I want to have sex with you. I think something else triggered the situation and things got out of hand. You know, things got out of hand. So for him to be able to sustain such scratches to his hand and to his face, there's only two reasons. He was in close proximity to her. Either, number one, when he was strangling her, or at the first instant in which, you know, she got smacked to the face. These are the only times. And I believe that, you know, if it's to his hands and to his face, It's probably maybe when he was carrying her that he maybe has sustained that. So I don't know. There's just so many things that are going on. I have to see the crime scene in order to really understand it. But anyway, all right, guys. I'm your host. 5 minutes or less review. Just trying to get a leg in all this analysis stuff, because I've been looking at some of these things and I don't know. Right now it's kind of confusing. But I will say that there was an exchange of words to some degree that may have led to somebody being triggered. And then, stuff happened, and then, this situation happened. It's really quite unfortunate. Very, very quite unfortunate. So, yeah. All right, guys.